Welcome again to session 4. I'm Sansani Chuwell from Bangkok. We'll be with you throughout this session. Wise use of wetlands is a core initial principle of the Ramsar Convention and is guiding the working, practicing pathways of multi-stakeholders, wetland practitioners, and managers. It's always challenging to compromise between various different needs of wetland users while keep very good balance between healthy wetlands and of course healthy, or you can say wealthy, livelihoods by maintaining wetlands natural characters, functions, and ecosystem services. So the wise use of wetlands is thus a topic or an issue which cannot be forgotten on the agenda of any meetings related to wetlands conservation and management. And we are also always very happy and excited to learn more of new cases or practices of wise use of wetlands, especially from local communities and wetland resource users. Today, we are honored to have with us here 4 speakers to present their cases. May I remind you one more time that each presenter has 20 minutes, 15 minutes for presentations, and 5 minutes for questions and answers. While a presenter is talking, other presenter, please kindly keep the mute mode. And for participants, you can send your questions, comments, suggestions, views through the chat box anytime. I mean anytime, no need to wait until the presenter finish the talk. Please kindly participate in this session by not leaving the chat box empty, okay? So let's start with the first presenter. May I invite James McHugh from Intem Consulting Company. James, the floor is yours.
All right, thank you. All right, so my presentation is promotion of wise use of Japanese Ramsar sites by supporting wildlife tourism. It's the People, Wetlands, and Wildlife, PWW, Wildlife Tourism Promotion Project. So this presentation was written by James McGill, myself, and Yuki Ozaki. So I'll be presenting today. As a background, expanding regional tourism is key to increasing Japan's inbound tourism. The majority of Japan's inbound tourists visit the so-called Golden Route, which is Tokyo, Kyoto, and Osaka. So in 2015, it represented 48% of inbound tourist days in Japan. However, in 2018, the number of inbound tourists who also visit regional areas was 1.4 times higher than the tourists who only visited the Golden Route destinations. So these tourists are seeking experiences that include nature and rural destinations. All right, so based on the Japanese government's white paper on tourism, okay, we can see that the number of people who expand their travel destinations to regional areas is increasing. So you see there's a pretty big increase from 2012 to 2018. And the percentage of the international visitors who looked most forward to local experience-oriented consumption, which accounted for 60% in international visitors outlying areas before their visit to Japan in the past 5 years. Sorry about that. Okay, so the inbound tourists who visit the regional areas are interested in enjoying nature and beautiful scenery. So if you look at the bar chart, you see this top is the skiing and snowboarding. But number 3 is nature and rural village experience tours, 74.1%. And then the lowest at 63.3% is enjoying nature and beautiful scenery. So this is the background. So anyway, the Japanese government in fiscal year 2019, started the Wildlife Tourism Promotion Project. The coordinating organization is the Ministry of the Environment. It's a subsidy scheme. The objective is to use Japan's natural environment, wildlife, and culture as the bases to contribute to the economic development of local regions through supporting increased inbound tourism. And the majority of the participants are local environmental NGOs and NPOs. So for a private company like Intim to participate is sort of unusual. Right. Let's see. Okay, PWW, People, Wetlands, Wildlife, is a CSR activity of Intim Consulting, Inc. So as I mentioned before, the budget was partly supported by a subsidy of the Japanese Ministry of Environment. However, we also received invaluable technical assistance from environmental NGOs, principally Ramsar Center Japan, RCJ, and Wetlands International Japan. So anyway, our motto is international cooperation. That is our mission. Together we feel joy, together we create. And our website is intimjapan.co.jp. So if you're interested, please log on. Okay, the outline of the PWW website. The URL is pwwj.org. It's an English website centered around registered Ramsar sites. The main theme is wise use. The focus is promotion, conservation, and wise use of the natural environments of selected Ramsar sites. Our approach strives to create content with a different point of view from existing websites that would be attractive to inbound tourists. So PWW, content with a different point of view. So we introduce Ramsar sites with high ecotourism potential by offering content that has a unique point of view and is designed to be attractive to inbound tourists. Usually people who are involved in environmental activities tend to be very serious and focused on academic issues, which means the sites themselves are often very kind of academic and somewhat dry. So we thought instead of an academic orientation, it would be more attractive to inbound tourists to have a site that had a subjective perspective, because people want to read stories, not just a list of features and attributes and specifications. So to emphasize the importance of wise use, we highlight the connections between the Ramsar sites and the residents of their surrounding communities. PWW is written in English to appeal to a wide global audience. It has 3 sections: articles and wetlands information, YouTube videos, and slideshows. So articles and wetlands information. The top image you can see is, I think this is Ose Numa, or at least the site of Ose National Park in Guma Prefecture. And the article is titled Eaters of the Mizobasho. Mizobasho is the iconic plant of the Ose wetland. So the articles are written from the viewpoint of a first found inbound tourist. So they don't attempt to be a comprehensive introduction, but instead try to focus on the defining features of the introduced wetlands. And each wetland has its own theme. In addition to the articles, we also provide information on wetlands, which is mainly links to academic or Japanese government pamphlets. Now, information on wildlife management, also links to many PDFs by the Japanese government, and cautions, basically things you should do and avoid doing when you visit wetlands for ecotourism. Okay, to give you an example of an article excerpt, this article was entitled Dances with Seagulls on the Akechi Bridge. So Akechi is a town in Hokkaido, which is near Akeshiko, Akechi Lake, and Beikan-Byushi River. These are both important Ramsar sites. So the first half of the article is a typical explanation of the Akechi town and its surroundings. But the second part was my kind of impressions. So I mentioned, if you see the last paragraph, so it says, I woke up early the next morning to find a dreary sky and heavy rain. However, I was determined to run over the bridge, which is the great Akechi Bridge. So it started to rain very hard, but I kept running because I wanted to run across the bridge. So when I reached the bridge, I found the bridge was much larger than it appeared the day before, and I saw 3 seagulls that were perched on the rail. So I ran another 200 meters or so, and I found them in the middle of the bridge. So finally, when I got to the end of the bridge to turn around, I saw the seagulls again. So I thought, this is really unusual to have these seagulls following me along the bridge. As I wrote, I think they were amused by this strange human running over the Akechi Bridge in the pouring rain. So the point is, I tried to kind of distill an impression, something that left a lasting impression on me on the wetlands that I visited, and tried to compare that to the readers of the website. Okay, it also features YouTube videos. So actually, I hate to admit, but the YouTube videos have become the most popular content on our site. So the videos are filmed and produced by a professional cameraman and art director. So they showcase local residents as well as the nature and wildlife of the wetlands. Okay, slideshows give useful information for travelers. They give travel information about visitor centers, popular destination sites. They also provide more in-depth information on the local flora and fauna. Okay, so we introduced 13 Ramsar sites in the first 2 years of our PWW activity. Now we went pretty much up and down Honshu, the main island of Japan, and also included Kyushu and Hokkaido. Okay, our related project was the fiscal year 2020 Ose Monitor Tour project. This project has similar objectives to the Wildlife Tourism Promotion Project. It's also coordinated by the Ministry of Environment, and this is a national parks promotion project. So our PWW team conducted an Ose National Park monitor tour. We worked closely with the Ministry of the Environment, the local Katashina village officials, local NPOs, principally the Yamamori Tour Guide Association. So the monitor tour team included members from America, Singapore, and Taiwan. So the objectives were to create attractive contents for eco-tours, to review the local ecotourism infrastructure and make suggestions for improvement, give advice and skill improvement to local ecotourism guides, and also give guidance or advice on techniques for promoting and advertising the merits of Ose and Katashina Village. So our main results were, we successfully completed a 2-day tour. We created a report, which we gave to all the stakeholders. We held an online review meeting with representatives from the Katashina village government and all related parties. And we made a pamphlet for safely enjoying Ose called James's 8 Hints for Ose. So this is a pamphlet. So if you'd like to get a copy of it as a PDF or a print version, please contact me and I will happily send you one. Okay, so PWW project results. So as I explained, we launched the project in 2020. We did a total of 13 Ramsar sites, and we had the following unique characteristics. Each site has its own original theme. The editing, design, and video production are professional grade, and the Ramsar sites are viewed from the eyes of an inbound tourist, right? We were able to obtain the full cooperation of the local city governments, really great cooperation, of the local environmental organizations, NPOs, and environmentally conscious local residents. And also, I'm happy to say we got a high evaluation from the Ministry of the Environment. I think they're participating today, so thanks again for your support. And we've obtained to date over 20,000 page views from 42 countries. So 2 principal authors of PWW are first, Ms. Reiko Nakamura. So she's a fellow of the Ramsar Center Japan. She's a journalist, a bird watcher, and an expert on ESD activities for children. And secondly, myself. So I'm a senior consultant at Interim Consulting Inc. I have an MBA, and I'm definitely not a bird watcher. So let me just say from my work in the PWW that we encounter a lot of bird watchers. So we're all lucky that bird watchers are not interested in world domination, because if they decide to take over, we'd all be finished, because they're very focused and organized people. Anyway. So lessons from the PWW project. The people of the wetlands really are key. The professional and personal networks, local government officials, local residents, volunteers. Wetlands offer real benefits to their surrounding communities. Scenic beauty, leisure activities. They prevent or ameliorate natural disasters such as floods, tsunami. And they also become a source of civic identity and pride. We also found the more the merrier. The more people you can involve in these kind of environmental activities and projects, the better. So as our team expanded, we found it improved with the addition of each new member. Last, I say financial sustainability of environmental activity is key. So environmental projects are very easy to start, but difficult to continue. So obviously a source or a key factor is trying to find a creatable or sustainable funding base. So to that end, public-private cooperation is necessary to expand activities. Okay, our plan for 2021 is create websites for at least 2 or 3 remaining Ramsar sites, increase the recognition of our PWW activity, explore ways to expand our activity, and build a sustainable economic foundation, and of course, have fun. So for more information, if you'd like to have more information on the PWW project or INTIM, please contact me, James McGill, at james@intimjapan.co.jp. So I think I'm 38 seconds early, but that concludes my presentation. Thank you very much. So I will return the screen to the chairman. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, James. Good things, and thanks for keeping the time. And that means you will have more time for hearing from the participants and take more questions to answers. But first of all, I myself would like to congratulate you and the PWW project. This is very inspiring.
Thank you.
Admiring project. Very, very good example for other countries. So you have several participants here send their appreciations in the chat box. For example, Connor Walsh, what a good idea of the PWW website. Every country should have this, and very help others to get some idea and to initiate more. Yeah, that's the one. And also for myself, I think the project is excellent partnership between private sector and like business sector, NGOs like RCJ and WIJ, and of course with the full support from the government, from the Japanese government. And that's a great, excellent idea. We have also some questions from Vishnu Bandari, 2 questions actually.
Okay.
Yes, good study and presentation, but the question is, what are areas of contributions of culture on the local economy around the wetland side? That's the first question.
Okay.
And if you may, the second question, any study done or explored in this regard, or even by the golden route you mentioned in your study, James?
Okay, I think more study needs to, this is a good question, more study needs to be done in this area. In terms of the cultural contribution, it varies from wetland to wetland. In some cases, the wetland is there and people kind of know it's there, but okay, it's there, but they don't really have much contact. In some places, they're very closely linked to it. For example, in Toyoka, in Hyogo Prefecture, in I guess Western Japan, you know, the Oriental white stork has become the symbol of the town, and its focus. If you go to any store, like you know, if you go to like one of the shopping areas, every store has an Oriental white stork image, and the town has almost built its entire identity around the conservation of the Oriental white stork. So, you know, a lot of the Japanese, local areas face big challenges because the population is declining, it's aging, you know, they have budgetary issues. So they need some kind of community focus. So Toyoka has chosen Oriental white stork as the focus of its community. And they have a pretty big sector in their local environmental office that's focused on it and also in promoting it, right? So it depends on the sites. Or if you go to Hokkaido, for example, like Kushiro, right? Kushiro wetland has a huge impact on the surrounding communities, right? You know, this not an ecological, but you know, just in terms of tourism, right? or for example, Ose National Park. So this is a study we like to do more work on because Japan doesn't have any DMOs, like this destination marketing organizations. So I don't know if we can create one, but the PWW is kind of like a virtual DMO. Because we're trying to say, okay, these are the ecotourism contents that can be exploited, and to give advice to local communities about how they can use them more effectively. So anyway, if you send me an email, I'll be happy to reply to you in more detail, but it's kind of overall answer.
Yeah. And also one question here. Yeah. Do you have kind of a community participation in the project? How do you ensure you have that?
By community participation, do you mean people from the local wetlands?
Right, maybe, yeah.
Oh yes, it's very big. For example, like I mentioned, Ose Katashina village. We had the local government. We had local tours. We had people who were just basically interested in environmental preservation, working in preservation projects. So almost everywhere we go, we have local participation. In fact, PWW would be impossible without it. Because okay, a bunch of people go to Tokyo and say, okay, we're going to film your wetland, nothing will happen. So without the direct participation and support of the local people, it's impossible.
Right. And a little bit, do you have any combined at the upper level, any combined conservation management plan and ecotourism plan?
I think that's what we, yeah. Okay, so I don't think we do it. I don't think we do it at this point. And this is something we could look at it in the future. Right now, this is information and promotion. So that would be another step. It's something we haven't looked at, but it's a very interesting area, I think.
Right. Yes. And also we have one question from Thailand. Kun Wanlop from ONEP asking, what are the key challenges from the project in terms of sustainability? how to sustain the project? Well, quite big question.
Very simple. It's money. That's a simple answer. In the project, the Ministry of Environment's project, most of the projects were very local and very small scale because they're being done by basically local NGOs or NPOs, sometimes individuals. But INTIM is a company, which means we have organizational ability and some financial resources. However, as a company, we can't afford to lose money. So I think we see this as a CSR project. We're contributing to society, but we can't do it on a money-losing basis. So basically, right now we're breaking even. So if we can find a way to make it economically profitable, obviously it'll be easier to sustain. So the key is funding, because a project like this, you need editorial staff, you need cameraman, you need writers, you have to move people around. It requires money. And the higher quality, the more money it takes. So that's it.
Right. Thank you, James. For me, I know Japan has so many Ramsar sites.
Yes.
And right now, you are working with 13 Ramsar sites.
Yes.
And even that launched in 2020, but right now you have quite a good number of viewers. From worldwide. I mean, 42 countries are not that bad at all, very good. I wonder, do you have any plan to cover all Ramsar sites in Japan or increase the number of viewers worldwide, and how would you do that?
Okay, first, we have a desire to cover all the Ramsar. We have a desire. But basically, as I said, it depends if we can find a sustainable economic foundation. Increasing the number of viewers is key. So I think our first objective is going to be to work more on our social networking. Because we've done it, but we haven't done enough. So we have to explore, for example, Instagram, Facebook, getting inside Facebook groups. We may create a press kit and, try to do more direct kind of, contact media outlets. But basically, for a story, we have to create content that will be attractive to media outlets. So that's the thing. But yes, increasing the number of viewers is key. Actually, when we were building the website, I didn't think we were going to get that many viewers because, you know, wetland conservation isn't the sexiest topic. So we actually got more viewers than I expected. But I think the potential, especially for ecotourism, is much bigger. And from talking to people and doing some research, I think that travel in Japan will basically return by next spring, or at the latest by next summer. Which means before then, you know, how much can we build up the recognition of the website, and how much, you know, attractive ecotourism information can we provide to people? I think that's going to be the key, because I'm convinced that there's a huge, you know, pent-up demand for ecotourism. People want to visit the Japanese local areas as soon as they're safely able to do so.
Yeah. Yes, James. The projects kind of have a great support to the ecotourism and wise use of wetlands, of course. Yeah. So all participants, if you are interested, don't forget to visit the website or directly contact James or Yuki-san or Reiko-san, if you may. Yes. Okay. Yes. So thank you so much, James, for your wonderful presentation. We enjoy this a lot. Thank you.
Thank you for your great moderation. Thank you very much.
Please join me giving the big hands to James.
Thank you. Okay,
let's move to the second speaker. We have here Sophia. Sophia is from the Center for Agricultural and Environmental Studies of Royal University of Agriculture of Cambodia. Sophia will share his experience with us about human use of small wetland natural resources in Gulen Promthep Wildlife Sanctuary. And this is one of my favorite places in Cambodia. Sophia, are you ready now?
Yes, thank you,
Yes,
Jan.
the floor is yours. Yeah.
Yeah, so first of all, I would like to pay respect to the chair and also the participant who joined this very important Asian Wetland Symposium. So today it's a great pleasure for me to share my experience with you all regarding human use of small wetlands natural resources in Gulen Promthep Wildlife Sanctuary in Cambodia. So here's the outlines of my presentation. So give an overview, research methods, result, and conclusion. Okay, so yeah, actually, Gulen Promthep Wildlife Sanctuaries is the very big one of the protected area within Cambodia, which is located in northern part of the country. It's a large protected area covering about 4,000 square kilometers. The three provinces, Phnom Penh, here, and Siem Reap province in Cambodia, close to Thai border. And the sanctuary was originally designed to protect the copra borsovili. So it is the representative animal in Cambodia called copra, and currently listed by the IUCN Red List of the threatened species, critically endangered. Small and scattered wetland play an essential role in environmental function and also biodiversity conservation, because people, they can more focus on the area which is, let's say, Ramsar site, but here is not Ramsar site, but it's a very small and also scattered wetland within the wildlife sanctuaries, and the people should be considered and should be well protected and also well conserved. Yeah, the sanctuary was designed in 1993 in order to protect mammal species, especially copra, where contain a variety of habitats, including lower green, deciduous to the open forest, as well as the can swam in the country. And as according to a study from Jeff Barson in 2004, we have approximately 12,000 natural small and scattered wetlands located in the open littoral gap forest in the northern part plain of Cambodia. And also, they still are in decreasing at an alarm rate. So we try to attack people to think about it. The small scattered natural wetlands is in the situation of destroying from the anthropogenic activities, including population growth, increasing agricultural land encroachment, illegal activities from the nearby villages and deforestation, loss of ecosystem integrity, reducing of species, habitats, and also diversities. So all of these species are very important, and we know that people can use the natural resources from the wetlands, but they also have a negative impact on the wetland as well. So here, I just would like to share you with the research objective. So we have 3 objectives here. So first, to show impacts of human use of small wetlands in the wildlife sanctuaries, to find out importance wetland values and local livelihoods. And the last one is to understand wetland management among stakeholders and local authorities at the different levels. So here, just want to show you the map of the study location. Here is the map of the Cambodia, and you can see the above one, the northern part of Cambodia is called Wildlife Sanctuary, Wildlife Sanctuary. And the map here is only the map showing the map of the wildlife sanctuaries. And in my case, I study in the wildlife sanctuary, and I selected 2 villages with different district. So we have 2 districts, and we select 1 village from each commune. So we call Rumchek, the red one, and the green one is Tamatboy village. And the rest you can see here, we have wetlands. So this wetland is from the government document, and show the set file of the wetlands across the wildlife sanctuaries, and you can see here. So the research methodology here, as I told you, we focus only 2 selected village and located in the wildlife sanctuaries. So I select by using the formula as seen here. So only 54 households from Tamatboy village and 30 households from Rumchek village in the different commune and different district in Previhir province. So totally we have 84 sample sites to be interviewed for understanding the human use of the natural resources from the wetlands. So the result here, it's indicated that most of the respondents answer the question is around 50% of them, they attend the primary school. So they still have low education. And also, if you talk about the human household income sources, so we have 2 different sources, primary source and secondary source. So if you look at the diagram, the figure 2, the farmer, they doing, most of them are farmer and they do farming. And it's about 90%. But if you look at the secondary source, so most of the people, they also do aquaculture. And the rest here, about 64%, some, they have their own business. Okay. And here's some pictures showing about the farmer activities. And another one is human use of wetland resource here. And we ask the people how and do they use wetlands resources? And they say yes. For the fish harvesting, so about 95%. So they use the wetland resource fish on the wetlands. And also water use, because the people, it is upland area in the northern part of Cambodia, and the big challenge for the people who living there is the water, especially for the dry season. And so if we have a small wetland there, so it may keep some water during the dry season, and the people can use the water for their own consumption, for animal, or even birds, especially for grain. There are grain and also giant ibis, and it also very useful, especially during this time in wet seasons, and also the time for the grain to produce egg. So people also important. I think that it is important for people to use the water resource from the wetlands. And also they also use the vegetation. Yeah, and you can see a very high percentage as well. It's 85%. They can use the vegetation that they can support their living and livelihood. Because you can see some picture here. Use water, they catch fish, and also they use some material from the wetland, like a kind of cypress to use for mat or broom, and sometimes use all of this to cover the roof of the house. Yeah, so all of these are very important. And for fish species that the people they collected from the wetlands. So if you see the percentage that fish catch is about 26% is from the fish species Chana strata. And so this cat is only per time, because we study only per time during the study, and we ask the people. And but for the kilogram, because even they have high percentage of Chana strata, but for the fish cat, and we ask them how much they harvest. So the Hampibarus species is the higher, 3.5 kilogram per time when they collect it in the forest or in the wetlands. Yeah. And also the frequency of the fish collection in the small wetland, mostly they collected in seasonal. Yeah, because people they also change the time. Sorry, not change the time. People if they go daily or weekly, they could not find any not so many fish species. But for seasonal, let's say in wet season, so because they still have some wetlands, some small wetland located in the forest, and it's far from their own house, and then they still have some water during the wet season, and they still collect from this. But in dry season, so most of the small and scattered wetland would get dry out, so no water to catch fish. Okay, and another resource is called timber species. Yeah, for in this case, because it's located in the Wetland Sanctuary, but the Wetland Sanctuary also they have the village within there, and the people they also collect timber. But actually, the timber is not. I mean, it doesn't mean the people they have to cut down all the big tree for their own consumption, not. But just In some cases, the people they go to the forest and then they cut down a small amount of wood or timber, like to build a house, like this. So you can see one species per time that they collected is 5 cubic meter. We call Ficus bicalensis. The local name we call Trang. So Trang is a very species that the people they mostly they got very big, you can say high number compared to other species. Here also for the vegetation. Yes, as I mentioned earlier, if you talk about vegetation, play a key roles in supporting livelihoods because they live in the forest and far away from, I can say, from the city, from the town, from so in the forest. So how they survive? So it depends on vegetation for the food. So you can see here, I just want to tell you for one species is called Malenta sovis. So this one is very, we can say a very, very important one. And the people can earn much money from this vegetation. And they can not only for their food at the household to support the living life, but they also get much more from their collection, and then they sell to get some money, and sometimes they export to Thailand as well. So yes, so it's very big, I can say very useful vegetation in the area. And another thing is yeah, Sauropus androgynous also important, and for the food. Another important thing is orchids. Yeah, orchids here you can see about 4 kilograms per time when they go to the forest to collect, and especially for the big tree which is around in the wetlands. You know, the ecosystem of the tree there, which is a very remarkable one, because we have a small wetland and we have a very, very big tree surrounded the wetlands. A very special case in Columbia Wildlife Sanctuary, because we have some pond or lake in the forest, and we have a very, I forgot the name of the species, but one species, it's last long about 300 years ago in the wetlands, surrounded by the surrounded wetlands with these 3 species. Okay, so yes, just a very some species like also Empomia or Aquatica as well here, some species that they collect for the food. And I just forget to tell you more for orchidea. They also try to collect, and they sell very high price. Yeah. Yeah. Another point is about the rice farming. The people they still do farming surround the wetland because they have wetlands, and then they have a rice field which close to the wetlands, and then they also use water from this for agricultural activities. But here just focus only the cost of the people they spend for rice farming. So you can see mostly higher they spend for fuel. They use the machine and to irrigate to get the water from the wetland and water to the rice field. They use machines. Yeah. Also for the fertilizer, yeah, it's very also that the people, that is one of the big constraints for people. They use the fertilizer around the wetlands. Mostly it kills fish and it pollutes water using the chemicals around it here, and also the water quality. Yeah.
Sorry, Sophia. Time is running out.
Okay. Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And another point is about benefit from different rice variety that the people they're doing rice. So they harvest per time per year. So you can see dual species rice variety is the new one that introduced by the government, and the rest are the traditional rice variety, but except dual and Karamlis, also the new variety for the people to use. And we can see quantity they produce around 1,400 kilogram per hectare, and consumption. So caramel is lower, but the Niang ox species, rice species, is they use high consumption and a very delicious one. But it's very delicious and for the traditional rice variety. For the selling price, so caramel is the highest. So they sell per kilogram is about 1,600 reals per kilogram, and yeah, they still earn more money from the caramel species. Okay, and sorry. And another point is about the result from the group discussion that I just want to highlight from the key informant interview. Group discussion with key informant and a very important person at the wetland area. We talk about the impact of wetlands. So you can see here illegal activities of land expansion for agriculture, and which is one of the wetland concern have us increasing of a local population. You know, when the people they get married, and then they have to provide a piece of land to their children after they got married, and then they provide a piece of land, so it will be increase the population there, and the wetland will be destroyed. Doing farming, so people they do farming, hunting, yeah, and also sometimes we have the invasion from the powerful people. Let's say industrial investment, rubber plantation like this. Actually, it's not allowed, but in case that the government they agree to provide some area of the wildlife sanctuary to be the we call economic land concession. So this is one big challenge as well, and it's also difficult for the powerful people. And also the second point is about wetland degrade. Insufficient allocation of fund. Yeah, they also provided the information about the lack of information on wetland policy in Cambodia. Only a few sources from foreign funding interested in wetland conservation, a lack of understanding, appreciation of need for the wetland conservation, and only a few government regulation enforcement, lack of information network and wetland management. So refer to the small scattered wetlands, it's not like Bangladesh Sab or Mekong, some Ramsar site here, because in Cambodia we have 5 Ramsar sites. They do not consider much about small scattered wetland in the forest. So it's one big concern. And
Excuse me, Sophia, could
yes?
you please help sum it up a bit? The time is very limited. Okay.
Yes, really. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, actually, you are running out of time already.
Yeah. Okay.
Kindly conclude and yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So just go to wetland management. There is no policy in place to get wetland management into development plan in Cambodia. So here are some government institutions that they have the key mandate to protect wetlands. We have environment, MAF. Yeah, we have 10 wetland government. So conclusion, So wetland play an important role in improving local livelihoods through extracting natural resources from human consumption. So approximately 85% of the population depend on agricultural, and also the link between agriculture and wetland increase due to the population growth and human consumption. People just find many resources, including fish harvesting, timber collection, vegetation collection, animal hunting, water use. So 95% household, they do fishing activities in all season for household, and vegetation about 85%, water use 95%, compared to timber is about 36%. And also human use provide negative impact on the scattered small wetland, small natural resource, including illegal activities, fishing, tree cutting, land expansion for agriculture, population growth, and also people, powerful people, industrial investment. Yeah, and also very people have the new man-made wetlands. So in the wetlands in the area, the two community in Sambo and Previne village already established, while Rumchek was in processing legal document because they're looking for support from the wildlife sanctuary and the environment to support them. So thank you very much for your time.
Okay. Actually, it's very interesting to hear from the case in Cambodia, and I think we have the same kind of inputs here, that the site actually is the protected area, very, very strictly protected area. It's kind of have the status of wildlife sanctuary, which is very high, highly protected. Still, participants have questions about how people go in and get some resources for their subsistence livelihood. But I would say that it would be very common in the Mekong countries that sometimes the laws and regulations allow a little bit for the minimal uses of natural resources over there. Is that right? Just very briefly. Yeah. So it's also very interesting to hear more, Sophia, about how the kind of traditional ways and means that people are using the natural resources. So we consider the wise use because after generations that people are using the resources, the wetlands are still there and very healthy. So maybe next time, next AWS, Sophia would come again and tell us more about the situation. Okay?
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Sophia. Give a big hand. And because of the time limitation, I would like to move to our third presenter for today. May I invite Dr. Ritesh Kumar? Actually, we have big names here. He's the director of Wetlands International South Asia. Ritesh will broaden kind of the framework of the wise use concept. It's very challenging. The floor is yours, Ritesh.
Thank you, Dr. Chavi. Can you this team's participant is a proposal to relook on how do we define wise use and what kind of knowledge systems we use for defining our management strategies, including the brilliant presentation that I heard before this, where you are talking about how humans are forming a part of the wetlands. In 2018, as a part of Ramsar STRP, we published the Global Wetlands Outlook. And one of the striking things is that despite 50 years of international cooperation, the trend in wetland loss continues, and more so in Asia, Latin America, and Africa. Wise use is something that emerged in 1970s, and it was very striking because the generation then was talking about protection, preservation, limits to growth, wilderness. It was all very classical, protection. And suddenly you have a convention which talks about, yes, we can do conservation, but we also bring in humans as a part of the strategy. This was very striking. But over a period of time, our concern is that the language of wise use is receding in the background, and we conflate and confuse wise use with sustainable development. So it is a time that we relook into value of this concept, but possibly relook into the core concepts and the way it is framed. Wise use recognizes human nature in interdependency, and the crux is that while deciding wise use, there has to be stakeholder engagement and transparency in negotiating trade offs. In Resolution 9.1, we adopted the definitions. Wise use is the maintenance of ecological character of wetlands, and ecological character is combination of ecosystem components, processes, and services. The benefit slash services was a hot debate within convention. I think Dr. Chauvi will remember where Latin American colleagues did not buy in to the language of ecosystem services. They said benefits and services have to be put together. But when we look closely at the definition, we should also remember that wetland convention itself and wetland conservation has graduated from being a very waterbird centric convention to now, so on the top you see the ducks unlimited postage stamp. And this is what was the challenge in 1970s. Today in 2014, when we are talking about wetlands, we no longer just talk about species. We are talking about food, we are talking about water, we are talking about climate change. It's no longer a biodiversity or a species problem. So the question then to ask is that, is ecological character, can a wetland just have an ecological character, or does it have different characters? Can we actually maintain something in an ecosystem which is very dynamic? And when we say maintain something at a given point in time, with a lot of new science on ecological restoration, do we mean a reference wetland condition, or do we have something else? So, with these questions, a group of scientists, we met in a series of workshops, the last one in 2019 in Sydney, and we recognize that there is a fundamental problem in the way these definitions are done. The only thing predictable in a wetland is that it is going to be unpredictable. Change is the fundamental aspect of wetland. It is going to be dynamic, so we cannot maintain. It's like a moving train. And the understanding of ecological character was that ecosystem services come out of ecological systems, but that is also a fallacy. Without people, ecosystems or ecosystem services, this concept is a very partial one. If you look at this image that I look from Chilica, within one frame you can see birds, people, and everything. Now, how can we tease this out and say that, people, we will only consider the ecosystem components and processes, and we see people and their value, what they derive from the wetland. But remember, people also associate with wetlands from a deeper identity sense. These fishermen, they cannot be put into Cambodia or Philippines and they will fish. Chilica is their identity. The wetland is also their identity. It's their religion. It's their sense of place. It's their belief. So wetland means a lot more than just incomes or our livelihood dependence, or when we say poverty, it is much more. It is about identities of people. So we propose that we have to recognize wetlands not just systems, ecological systems, but social ecological systems, wherein the ecology and the society, they interact. And through governance choices, you can have protected areas, you could have community owned choices, and all of this has to go into the way we define and understand wise use. And wetland character per se has to be an emergent property. It cannot be defined just by seeing that, okay, I know water quality, I know plants, I know birds, so I know about the wetland. No, it is only when we understand the interactions, the ecological interactions and social interactions. For example, migration patterns, human migration patterns are also an important, in several wetlands that I work with in Bangladesh and in India, migration patterns have a bearing on the way wetland resources are used. So unless those social processes, or Miguel, I saw your brilliant presentation on tourism in Japan. If you forget the tourism cycle, when is the season when people want to visit, you cannot get your wetland ecosystem right. So we say that unless we understand these social interactions well, along with ecological interactions, we'll not be able to do a good wetland character definition. So we are required to focus on the system as a whole rather than just looking at society or ecology. And change is always likely to be directional. That means there is no past for a wetland. Social ecological systems, a brackish water lagoon can become freshwater and can become brackish again. But a social system, when it moves from a traditional system to market dominated, it does not come back to a traditional system. So these changes are directional, and all of this is likely to give managers surprise rather than being predictable all the time. So in 2020, an important research was published where people stated that why they think their wetlands are degrading. And when you look at this closely, it's no longer about species, and the problem is becoming wicked all the time. That means there is no defined solution to wetland degradation. All you have is a trade-off. You can have more urbanization, less of wetlands, or you can have more of wetlands and less of urbanization. And the trade-offs are something that we need to understand and build in our management plans. The only way you can address these trade-offs is to create scenarios and learn from management. Every management is going to be experiment, and unless we learn from our management, okay, we attempted tourism, what did we learn? So let's modify tourism, go another 5 years, again modify. So it is learning by doing that will help us resolve the problems of wetland degradation. So what about the maintenance goal? Can we, what is it that we maintain? What we propose is that we accept change, we embrace change, we define something which are called boundary spaces. We define boundaries which are ecologically undesirable and which are socially undesirable. So, okay, we don't want invasive species in our system. At the same time, we don't want wetland governance systems which do not take care of traditional communities. And we manage the wetland in these boundaries. It is far more important to look at these boundaries rather than an end state. And we define the space as the wise use operating space. So our proposal, first one, that we drop the word ecological character and we call it a wetland character. Character could be a cultural character. Character could be a hydrological character. It could be a social character, right? But we recognize that there are multiple characters of a wetland. We recognize that wetlands are not just ecological systems, but social ecological systems with governance as the link. And wetland character is a character that is acquired as a system. It cannot be just acquired by reading the water quality or hydrology. It is hydrology, water quality, ecology, plus the way people interact, which will give the sense of wetland character. And then wise use is about maintaining this character in a wise use space. Now, how do we define this? First of all, we should recognize that everybody has a different view of the wetland. Everybody brings on board different knowledge systems. So, as an ecologist, I can bring in a different science. As a sociologist, I do community surveys. As a linguist, I do
Hello.
yeah. Can you see my
Yeah.
screen? Yeah.
Yeah.
So
See, but it's kind of smaller. If you have the full screen,
yeah, we'll do that.
yeah.
So,
Okay.
so we have to talk about multiple value systems and values and accept that there are multiple ways of knowing a wetland, and participation and inclusivity is the norm. So we can describe a wetland through multiple ways. We can write a sophisticated report or we can do a painting. All of these are different ways of knowing a wetland and diverse ways of expression. We should expand our domain of knowledge to incorporate multiple channels, multiple forms of expression of knowledge. So finally, what we conclude that merely listing of subcomponents, as has been recommended in several Ramsar guidance, is not going to be enough to describe wise use. We have to describe the system in its full embodiment. The character is acquired in a context. We should not forget the history and politics around it. It can be expressed in multiple ways. It could be a painting, it could be a report, could be a systems diagram, and it should integrate epistemological diversity, especially bringing and bridging multiple knowledge systems. We have published our framework in a paper in Marine and Freshwater Research in 2021. I encourage and request everyone to read this paper and also give us feedback on whether this makes sense and how could we improvise. So Dr. Chave, this is all that I wanted to present. I'll stop sharing my screen now.
Okay, thank you very much. Let me see what we have in the chat box. Yeah, James also put some comments over there. Would you like to say something, James?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, yes, we can.
Yeah, I'm back in the office now.
Go on. Yeah.
Sorry, actually, Mr. Dr. Kumar, excellent presentation.
Right.
Any ideas? I agree. A systematic approach to wetland conservation is key. Any ideas for like economic incentives to kind of, encourage people to sustain wetlands, or have you found anything that has been effective so far?
So economic incentives, yes. So these are part of tools, but to my mind, and what is our proposal, that we should look beyond economic incentives. People relate to wetlands not just because of their incomes. It is about yours and mine's identity. And when you do this, it is beyond our monies. It is about our shared community asset. When I look at a wetland, Dr. Sansani's work herself is such an exemplar of this approach. Any amount of money cannot justify the passion that she brings when she speaks about wetlands. And when I saw her as a youngster, 20 years ago, 25 years ago, when I was attending Ramsar convention meetings, here was a person who was emotionally connected, and these emotions go beyond economic expression. So I'll encourage wetland managers and practitioners to look beyond the conventional market tools, to see our emotional sensitivities, behavioral change sensitivities, and expand our toolkit. So economics, yes, they're definitely an important part. Without food on the plate, conservation will not succeed. That's the basics. But it is more than the food on the plate. That is what I want to convey. Thanks, James. I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, this is very good. Maybe, yeah, good interactions. Also, there is one from, I think, Connor Walsh again. How does this different perspective on wetland character relate to the discourse on decolonizing conservation research?
Thank you, Connor. A hard question. So I was very proud that I was decolonizing and presenting a global southern view. But there are parts of the world which have never been colonized, I was told. So I think what I would say that yes, it brings new perspectives, whether it is colonial or not colonial. But conservation today is not just about species. It is an equally challenge about people. And when we recently concluded the IBES global biodiversity, the IBES global assessment and the values assessment, much of the conservation frontiers are now lying in indigenous lands, local communities' land. These are not located just in our protected areas. So that means our modes of conservation will have to essentially be inclusive and working with their knowledge systems and their capacities, their orientations, and their beingness, their belongingness with nature. So that's my learning. I'm on this journey along with you, Connor. Happy to take this along.
Because we started your presentation 5 minutes late, so I think you have 5 minutes more to say and to take questions. But for me, every time when we talk about wise use of wetlands and the definitions and all the ideas, especially when you talk to the local communities and the wetland resource users, it's very challenging. They always ask these activities they are doing are wise or not wise users, for example. And sometimes it's really hard to say so because activities here would be good, but when you apply the same model to another site, it could be something else, which can be disaster somehow. Are you, sorry to say this, but are you making wise use concept harder to apply?
No, Dr. Chavi, on the contrary, what we are saying is it is also a problem of wise use is like the elephant in the room. If an ecologist sees it, he or she sees it as a wall. If a sociologist sees it, he will see it from a different lens. My submission is that we need to get into a room with multiple perspectives. So whether it is a wise or an unwise use is not just the choice of an ecologist. It should equally be the choice of local communities because it is their assets. So what we say that let us describe the boundaries. What is it that you don't want in the system? And say that okay, we don't want an unjust conservation, we don't want conservation to eat up into our governance systems, and we work on those boundaries. We develop, we co-evolve a wise use wise use thinking, rather than having a top driven, only ecology driven, only science driven wise use philosophy. So I'm calling for more inclusion of different sciences, different knowledge systems. I think, Dr. Chavi, if you kindly permit, there is a question from Mr. Rafiqul Islam
Yeah.
on the chat box, and I can't trace. Yes, so Bangladesh is a reserve forest inside Sundarbans. There is a wildlife sanctuary, is an
All
ecology.
right.
So wise use makes confusion for SRF. I totally agree. So when we make our governance systems very hard, uh, we totally understand that the kind of conservation that we have been pushing for in major parts of South Asia or in Asia, which are working around protected areas, our legal systems are fairly rigid. So wise use is an ongoing challenge. But at the same time, we should also recognize that at least in India, we no longer designate wetlands as protected areas, but we designate as community reserves, wherein communities have an equal stake in defining their governance systems. So old, classical no human alteration kind of a regime are always going to push us into complex terrain. I will not say that this answer is a black and white one, whether we should have protected areas, whether we should not have protected areas. It is very context specific. But we should acknowledge that people are an integral part of the ecosystem, and their governance issues should also be considered while we take a call that we should exclude everyone from the governance regime. So that's a choice that we need to have. But apologies, Dr. Rafiqul Khan, I will not have a very black and white answer. We are ourselves facing this challenge.
Right, right. Um, Also, you mentioned about your latest paper, the article. Is it available online? I will go and have a look and read through it.
Dr. Chawi, yes, it was published in 2021. I'll make sure a copy is available to all the participants through the Ramsar
Okay,
Regional
yeah,
Center.
sure. So this is a very challenging and very interesting new open and broaden the new idea and concepts. So keep on working. I think we have more to discuss, and then yeah, maybe we end up with something later or sooner. So thank you very much, and give a big hand. Yeah. Thank you. And
Thank you, Dr.
let's move to our last presenter. Shinpei Iwasaki. Shinpei-san is the president of Ramsar Center Japan. He will introduce to us a present about blue swimming crab fishery co-management through crab banks from lesson learned from Japan and Thailand. Shinpei-san.
Okay. Sorry, I a little bit changed my title. So my title is the Swimming Crab Fishery Management through the Crab Bank, Lessons Learned from Japan and Thailand. Sorry, I slightly changed my title. And again, hello everyone. My name is Shinpei Iwasaki. I'd like to share with you about one of the widest practice, so-called crab bank, in the case of the Japan and Thailand. This presentation is a pilot study and outcomes of the joint study between me and Dr. Tamarat Putai from Mahidol University. Before going to the concept and the case study of the crab bank, just I'd like to explain about the swimming crab fisheries in brief. In Japan and Thailand, there are two key commercial swimming crabs, mears and in Japan and blue swimming crabs in Thailand. These swimming crab species are very important commercial fisheries resources. However, as you may know, it has been reported that swimming crab catches have declined both in number and size during the past several decades in many countries. Here you can see the two figures. These figures show the example of the annual catch trend of the swimming crabs in Japan and Thailand. As you can see, in Japan since 1980s and in Thailand since 2000s, there have been the decreasing trend in the total catch of the swimming crabs. There are many reasons, but the reasons include the overfishing, commercial catch due to the higher market demand for egg-bearing crabs, use of the highly effective fishing gears, climate change, etc. Efforts are needed to promote the sustainable use of the swimming crab for not only the maintaining the ecological balance, but also securing the food security and sustaining the fishery and its associated income opportunities in coastal areas. There are many examples of the sustainable use of the swimming crabs, including the crab bank. Here, I just put the image of the crab bank. Crab bank has been developed in the Asia. The crab bank activities are different from the crab seed production. Crab bank is a community-based fishery management system which allows the egg-bearing mother crabs to spawn before or instead of being sold. There are two steps. First step is collection of the egg-bearing mother crabs. Before introducing the crab bank system, the fishers used to sell all swimming crabs in the market like this. However, after the crab bank system introduced, the fishers distinguished the egg-bearing mother crabs from other crabs. Like this is a egg-bearing mother crabs. In case of no egg-bearing crabs, the fishers just sell them in the market as usual. On the other hand, in case of the eggs-bearing crabs, the fishers shall not sell them directly. The second step is releasing the eggs to the sea. There are three ways of the releasing the eggs to the sea. We call them as natural crab banks at sea, and crab banks on land. From the viewpoint of the natural crab banks, as shown in this photo, the fishers puts or marks the name or symbols on the carapace of the crabs and release these crabs arrive back to the sea. In the case of the crab bank at sea, the fishers put the egg-bearing crabs in the cage in the shallow water sea. Eggs are naturally released to the sea. Then the mother crabs are sold or just released to the sea. This third case. The fishers bring the egg-bearing crabs and put them in the tank or pond on the land. In this case, we need to use the aerator to raise the egg-bearing crabs and bring the eggs to the sea for releasing purpose. This kind of activity, the origin of the crab bank goes back to a model which has been developed in Japan. Since then, the crab bank has been adapted and practiced by coastal fishing communities in many countries of the Asia, especially in Thailand. So from the next slide, I'd like to present two cases of the crab bank activities, both in Japan and Thailand. Here, this slide shows the case of the Gazami Fuyasokai in Japan. This is a Fishers-initiated organization, and it was established in 1986. In the fiscal year of the 2019, there were 580 members, consisting of the fishers and citizens. There were three reasons why this organization was established. The one reason was decreased trend of the swimming crab catch in that area. And the second reason was implementation of the crab seed production by the Government Research Institute. The crab seed production has been started since 1968 in the Seto Island Sea. On the other hand, the fishers continue to catch eggs-bearing crabs and sold them in the market. So this was a contradictory in actions. And the third reason was research findings. The fishers, in collaboration with the researchers, conducted the surveys on the ecology of the swimming crabs, as shown in this photo. And then they found that the breeding season will start from the June to August, 3 times per year. And swimming crab had wider mobility, so elaboration are needed to promote the participation of the fishers at the inter-fishery group level. What is more, after the breeding season is over, as shown in this graph, the price rate of the swimming crab will be higher, particularly in the December and January. So it is good if the fishers do not collect egg-bearing crabs in the breeding season for both ecology and economy purpose. So these organizations apply the natural crab banks. After collection of the egg-bearing crabs, the organizations purchase them at a fixed price. Then the fishers shall mark name and symbols, then release them to the sea. To purchase the egg-bearing crabs by this organization, the members shall pay 1,000 Japanese yen or $10 approximately annually. The Gazami Fuyasokai, this organization has implemented 3 important activities. One activity is awareness raising. To manage the crab bank system, the community participation is very important. The organization made the informational material such as a video and posters and newsletters. And the organizer, like fisherman, did a face-to-face meeting with the coastal people, as shown in this photo. Then they encourage the people to join this organization as a member. And the second activity is the management. The organization requested the fishers to follow the rules of the crab bank. And also they set the goal that is 3,000 mother crab should be collected by the fisherman. And I put one example of the price rate here of the eggs-bearing crabs by size. So by size, how much money the organization have to buy from the fisherman. So you can see the example. And also please look at this image. Here, fishermen have to put the information. I mean, they should mark the name of the fishery cooperative association and the registration number, and with the word "do not catch," toruna in Japanese. So from the viewpoint of the impact here, as I put, at least 100,000 mother crabs have been released back to the sea. Suppose the one eggs-bearing crab have around 2 million eggs. The fishers saved 2 trillion eggs in total so far. It is also important to say that this crab bank activity has a positive impact on the swimming crab fisheries in terms of the new community regulation among the fishers. The fishers call this regulation as backfish movement. That is the catch and release of the small crabs and soft-shell crabs, as well as the mother crabs. What is more, the Gazami Fuyasokai, this organization played important roles in expanding the crab bank practice to the other areas. The organizations provided seminars and conferences to the fishermen in other areas. These efforts led to the increased number of the crab banks in Japan and other countries, including Thailand. So next slide, I will explain about the case of the crab banks in Thailand. We have conducted a preliminary survey in 2020 to 2021. First, we try to find crab bank organizations. How many crab bank organizations are there? In total, so far, we identified 61 organizations covering the 19 provinces of the Thailand. Then, we also conducted a questionnaire survey and collected the answers of the 20 crab bank organizations. According to the questionnaire survey, we found that the number of the crab bank organization was small scale. The average number of the members was 28. Unlike the Gazami Fuyasokai in Japan, the fishers in Thailand donated the eggs-bearing crabs to the crab bank. This figure, please look at this figure. This figure shows the trend of the crab bank establishment year. You can see that most of the crab bank organizations have been established after the year 2010. This slide shows the summary finding of the questionnaire study. According to the Wilcoxon rank sum test, there was significant difference between before and after the establishment of the crab banks in terms of the daily per capita catch period, and ratio of the crab fishery in the community. This means that the introduction of the crab bank led to the activation of the swimming crab fishery. For example, regarding the catch, before crab bank is started, the fishers just caught the 4 kg, but after crab bank is introduced, they could increase more fish, like 10.2 kg. And similar to the case of the Japan, we also found that the crab bank activity had positive impacts on the swimming crab fisheries in terms of the new community regulation among the fishers, such as no juvenile catch, no catch in conservation area, a temporary banning of the crab fishery, and banning of the zero net use. And also, I found that training activity were also implemented by some of the crab bank organizations to get more awareness for the crab conservation. And also, we found that the crab bank activities are implemented by not only the fishers, but also the various stakeholders, including the academics, municipality, companies, department of fisheries, etc. And to promote the community participation of the crab bank, the two kinds of the efforts were identified. The one is providing the income generation to the community member, and another one is a strong leadership by the community leaders. However, we also found that 30% of the crab bank organizations reported that the crab banks were not accepted by some fishermen. So the lack of the people's awareness may stop operating the crab bank in the near future. So this is the last slide. In our presentation, we have addressed one of the sustainable use approach to swimming crab fisheries using the crab bank approach. There are a variety of the potentiality of the crab banks. Through that, our case studies, both in Japan and Thailand, introduction of the crab bank is expected to increase the total catch of the swimming crabs. And the concept of the crab bank is very simple. So this will lead to change the fishers' awareness for promoting the sustainable use of the swimming crab fisheries. In many cases, the crab bank activity promoted the further sustainable use of the swimming crabs, including the putting the new rules. We also found that some crab bank organizations provided job opportunities for the coastal people. Please look at this photo. This photo shows the value-added products for the sale to the restaurants in the big city, such as Bangkok. After releasing the eggs, the mother crab meat was processed by the community people. So this is a kind of one of the good widest practice, I think. And from the viewpoint of the current and future challenges of the crab banks, the way how to promote or how to maintain the community participation, this is a very key challenge. And the crab bank is a community-driven approach. So without the community participation, some fishers may sell egg-bearing crabs in the market directly. So anyway, awareness program is needed to make their attitude environmental friendly. And also I need to say, the building collaborative partnership among the stakeholders is also needed. The fishers need the support from various stakeholders in terms of the knowledge, skills, and funds. And combining the crab bank approach with other fishery regulations are also expected to be effective for sustainable use of the swimming crab fishery. So further elaborations are also needed to link the crab bank to other fishery management methods. Lastly, I have introduced the case of the crab bank in Japan and Thailand, but there are many fishing communities which have not applied crab banks so far in the Asia. So to increase and maintain the number of the crab bank organizations, the networking approach to develop the better understanding of the lessons learned from each crab bank organization is needed. So we would like to pay attention to these 4 points for our future study in Japan and Thailand. That is all. Thank you very much for your listening.
Okay, thank you very much. Thanks to somewhere else. And I have learned that the Ramsar Center Japan is working with the countries along the Bay of Bengal. And how far and how much you go for that within those countries, and which types of the crab banks that would tend to be acceptable over there. Please share more about that.
I see. Thank you very much for Chair Sansani-san. Actually, unfortunately, because of the COVID-19, I could not travel many places of the crab bank organizations. But so far, in my understanding, in Japan, in the case of Japan, we applied the natural crab banks. That is very common in Japan. But some organizations also apply the crab bank at sea or crab bank on the land. And also, Ramsar Center Japan, in collaboration with our partner, such as Parishuri from India, we conducted, we implemented the crab bank approach in the state of the Odisha. This is a crab bank on the sea, not natural crab bank and not crab bank at sea. But actually, we didn't matter. I mean, based on their ecology and people's preference, they can choose which type of crab bank system is better. They can choose. But I also found, like in the case of the natural crab bank system, sometimes people do not follow the rules. So we're not sure people just keep the rules. I mean, they have to not sell. I mean, they have to bring their egg mother class to the organization. But sometimes people directly sell their mother class to the market. So this kind of, I mean, not illegal, but people break the rules. So this kind of things we can see in the case of the natural crab bank. So there are positive and negative sides in each system of the crab bank. But I hope, when I'm able to visit the other places, I want to see how or why people chose the different system. So this kind of things I want to learn more in the near future. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Shinpei-san. I think the time is up already. And let's see. The chat box over there, any?
So far, no comment.
So far, no.
Yes.
No views. That's been maybe already very clear. Yeah. I think we all need to work more on the issues. Although we have seen lots of stats and research works monitoring about the increase of the national crab stock after application of the crab banks, and also of course very clear benefits on social economic aspects. But I myself haven't come across much about monitoring of the improvement or the change in the ecosystems and species interactions. I mean, once you apply the crab banks concept, how would be good, or what happened to the overall ecosystem? Would you like to say the last thing for that?
Yeah, thank you very much. Actually, the monitoring of the crab bank is very tough or hard work, because when we put the marks on the carapace of the crabs, after some times, this mother crab will change their skin. I mean, so it's very hard to monitor how effective the crab bank is organized. So we could not identify. And also, yeah, but according to the questions, all, I mean, crab bank workers believe this activity should be improved for the ecology of the crab. And also not only the crab, but also other species, because other fish or small species also eat the juvenile of the crabs. So this is good for the ecology. So that's why fishermen believe this kind of activity will increase or improve the ecosystem. Or, I mean, not only the crab stocks, but also other species as well.
Yes, Chimpe-san, there is an input from Kun Wanlop Prichamat from ONEP from Thailand. He says that the crab bank concept in Thailand is recognized by the Department of Fisheries, very well accepted by the government, and it has been policy and plan to promote these kind of activities throughout the country. So countrywide, we have so many fishing communities that are applying the crab bank concept. And we learn more about that later on. And also the last question from James. What are main reasons fishers resist the crab bank?
Yeah.
Can you briefly answer that?
Yeah, one reason is the economic purpose. I mean, yeah, when the fishermen join this activity, they have to donate the mother crabs to the organization. Of course, some organizations, they share their mother crabs by paying the money as like Gazami Fuya Sokai, people member have to pay the money for participating in this activity. Then even the fishermen catch their mother crabs, they can get some money. But except this, usually the fishermen have to donate their mother crabs to the organization. So they could not get the money from this. So that is one of the problems. And another problem is even the fishermen did not participate in this program. Other fishermen living in the neighbor area can get a benefit. So we call it, this is a kind of a, how can I say, yeah, so I mean, not only the participants, but also non-participants get a benefit. So that's why they have the non-participants have a more incentive not to join the program. And also another case is, yeah, sometimes there is, like in the case of the crab bank on the sea or crab bank on the land, some people just get, I mean, they steal the mother crabs illegally. Then they sell directly the mother crabs to the market. This kind of accident, it happens sometimes. So how to monitor or how to control, well, this kind of things are needed. I mean, this is also one of the challenges.
Okay. Thank you very much, Chimpe-san. I'll give you big hands again. Yeah, and I think it's about the time for the wrapping up. Okay, so I'm to all the presenters for sharing with us very, very interesting activities related to wise use of wetlands today. For presentations cover several aspects from wetland ecotourism, subsistence livelihood based on wetland resource users, sustainable crab fisheries, and of course, broadening the concept of wise use of wetlands. I'm sure we all have much, much more to learn and keep on working, okay? And for your information, under the theme of this session, wise use of wetlands, we also have at least 3 poster presentations from Malaysia, Japan, and China. The one from Malaysia, it's about interaction between wetland resources, ecosystem services, and local communities. The second one from Japan is very interesting about rice paddies and biological monitoring. And from China, conservation of superstar species for wise use of wetlands. I like the term superstar species. We often heard about flagship species, but superstar species would be sexy and attractive. Okay, and so all the posters are very interesting. Our participants, please visit the poster session and have a look. Again, also thanks to all dear participants for your active participation. Let me remind you that tomorrow there will be 2 parallel sessions on multi-stakeholder participation and citizen science, and on regional policy issues. And of course, the last day, Friday, there will be AWS networking session. I do hope to see you all again tomorrow and the day after. Last but not least, thanks to RRC-EA for and all the amazingly active staff for making the number 9 Asian Wetland Symposium, or AWS 2021, possible during this hardest time. So from me, bye for now, and see you again tomorrow. Thank you very much, everyone.